This week's stories, readers and friends, is Keeping the Lost Dog Lost. So at this point, you should have listened to the full story. And right now, what I'm going to do is we are going to look at chapter 1. Remember, we are referring to the parts of the stories and describing how each section builds on one another. So this is chapter 1 of Keeping the Lost Dog Lost. When I read this, I already know that this story has 3 chapters. And when we talk about chapters, we've talked about how this is how the author breaks down what we're reading. Chapter 1 is kind of that beginning part of our story. It's introducing us to probably the characters and the setting and what's going to happen. The cool thing about chapters is they also leave you at the end of the chapter wanting more. The story does not come to an end. It doesn't wrap things up. What it does is it starts to set us up for what's going to happen next. So when we end a chapter, there's more to what is going to happen in this story. And the reason the author does that is because if at every chapter the story just kind of ends, then it would be very choppy and the book would be broken up in a very strange way. So looking at this, I can already tell it's a story and it's a realistic fiction. So I'm going to read chapter 1 and then we're going to look at it closely. Finding a lost dog. 3 weeks ago, I found a lost dog on my way home from school. Mom and I couldn't figure out whom he belonged to, so we called him Mystery. There was no mystery, though, about what happened next. I fell in love with the dog and started hoping that he could stay with us forever. Then one night, Mom sat down next to me and said, "Jillian, if you can't find Mystery's owner, do you think you're ready to become a pet owner?" I said, yes, of course. Then a darker thought crept into my brain. What if we do find the owner? So, before we start talking about this, the first event is they found a dog. Well, who's they? Up here it says, I found a lost dog with my mom. But down here, we see that it says Jillian. So the mom in the story is referring to her daughter, and we now know that the daughter's name is Jillian. It's because it says Jillian, what if we can't find the owner? So we kind of want to, right off the bat, figure out who is the I in the story. In this case, it ends up being Mom and Jillian. And in this part, they found a dog. And the author did a really good job at introducing the fact that, they found a dog, they named him Mystery. But then something happens. Mom asks Jillian if she's ready to be a dog owner. Jillian says yes. But the author did not end the story here. Yes, of course. But then a darker thought crept into my brain. What if we do find the owner? That sentence right there sets us up to know that there is more to this story. And it kind of is an exciting thing that authors do. They don't just end it. They don't leave you hanging, but they say, now there's a thought in the main character's head. Something might happen in this next leading chapter. And when we see things like that, we ask ourselves, in the rest of the story, are they going to find the owner? What happens if they do find the owner? Does Jillian have to give the dog back? What if Jillian doesn't want to find the owner and doesn't try? So, looking at this, we can see that the author has done a really good job letting us know the big events and that there's more to come. So when we look at this, we know that Jillian loves the dog she's found. and she's ready to become a pet owner. But this story doesn't end here. When we're reading, we see that there's more to come. And some of the things in this story so far are they found the lost dog, she fell in love, and she wants to be a pet owner. But as we read on, we can think about all the different scenarios that can happen, which is really, really cool. So just looking at chapter 1, we ask ourselves lots of questions and we think about why the author did this. Well, right away, like I said a ton of times already, is the author wants us to keep reading. When we talk about stories and we talk about the structures, we're thinking about building and visualizing, right? I thought of a puppy in my head while I read this story. I thought about, falling in love with a puppy and having a picture in our mind. And when the author does this and stops the story, it brings us back and it wants us to have more. Organizing a text is always important. If it didn't tell us that there was a lost dog, we would have just thought that Jillian got a new dog. So every step in a story is important. Knowing the structure is important to being a better reader. One event has to happen before the other. If we started with, do you think you're ready to become a pet owner? We might have thought that Jillian's mom was going to buy her a dog. But the way the author set it up is she introduced that the dog was lost. They named him Mystery, and then Mom asked that pivotal question of, do you think you could be a pet owner? So this isn't them going out and buying a dog. This is them finding it. And then the events that follow. So the order of this story is important because these key details, if we jumbled them up, we would have a completely different story. So when we read, we want to pay attention and ask and answer questions and visualize what's happening. So this is chapter 1. And we leave off on this really cool cliffhanger of what's going to happen next. So tomorrow we are going to look at chapter 2 and break down what happens.